Okay, my name is Michael Barbet. I'll be your videographer today. This is Elizabeth Barbet, our featured speaker, and since I won't show up in the video, I'm going to do a quick pan just to show that with the inclusion of myself, we have all the prerequisite number of audience members. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Elizabeth Barbet. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Barbet. I am a senior at Cypress Bay High School, and I was born and raised in Weston, Florida. When I was little, I was known in my family for being fearless. I have heard countless stories of how when I was a toddler at the park, I never stuck by my parents, but instead I would wander off on my own adventure, and they would have to keep a watchful eye on me to ensure that I wouldn't get into any trouble. I never thought that something would come into my life that would test my fearlessness, until I turned 12. When I was 12, doctors found an unknown tumor lounging comfortably beneath the growth plate in my left shoulder. From that day on, my life changed. Then ended the reign of fearlessness and began the reign of doctor's tests. I no longer played at the park with my friends, but instead I spent my free time lounging with doctors at appointments. I never understood why my tumor had to happen to me and why it had to happen to my family. But until years later,
Years later, keep going.
Until years later, when I learned the valuable life lessons that it gave me. I learned the perseverance that not only I, but also my family have. I learned about my own weaknesses, and I learned about some of the life lessons that the world inflicts on others. I never realized the perseverance that me and my family had until years after the tumor. We traveled across the country going to different hospitals. I've had numerous medical tests performed on myself, and my case has been presented to different doctors among different conferences. But amongst everybody, nobody was ever able to figure out what my tumor was. To this day, my tumor still has gone undiagnosed. Nobody could ever decide whether it was benign or malignant. Despite being an unordinary teenager, I had to go about my best trying to be an ordinary one. I had to find the perseverance within myself to wake up every morning and to laugh with my friends about normal teenager things. And aside from my social and personal life, I also had to find the strength to keep going every day in school. I knew that I could not let the tumor weigh me down academically. So, despite missing sometimes weeks of school at a time, with the help of my teachers, I still took only AP and honors courses, and I managed to get straight A's in all of them, with the help from my parents and from the perseverance that I found within myself. Aside from my own perseverance, I also learned about my own weaknesses. I learned that I am only as strong as my biggest weakness. I used to think that the tumor was my biggest weakness, until I learned that it was actually my biggest strength. Because of the tumor, I learned lessons about life and about courage well beyond my years that I continue to hold with me every day. And aside from my weaknesses, I've also learned the old motto that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and instead it helps to build up your character. Aside from self issues with perseverance and weaknesses, I have also learned issues about the world. One of the very first times I ever walked into the waiting room at the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas, I was met by a 6-year-old little boy. He was sitting next to his mom in his wheelchair, smiling and looking happy as could be. When I looked down, I realized that this little boy had no legs. From later talking to him, I found out that he had osteosarcoma, and as a result was a double amputee. But this little boy didn't know that he was different from the rest of us, and instead he was smiling, just as any other 6-year-old boy would. About a year later, I also met a woman. She sat next to me in this same waiting room. She turned to me and she showed me all of the scars that she had on her left leg, and she told me that she had a rare form of cancer, and that after 6 surgeries, she still was not cured from it, and that she would continue to have surgeries for the rest of her life. But she was smiling as she told me her story. And she told me that how important it was to create your own happiness because it was the only way that you would get through situations such as these that test your strength. So yes, I have learned many stories and many lessons from my tumor. I have learned about perseverance, I have learned about my own weaknesses, and I have learned about the strength of others. But most importantly, I have learned that I was fearless when I was little, and I am still fearless now.
Four minutes.
Four minutes.
Yeah,
It's
4
4 out of
minutes.
6, Liz.
Can you just...
I have to pan the audience again? All right, I want to see everybody teary-eyed.
Without faking.
She is. Wow.
Terrific.
Okay. Very good, Liz. We're proud of you. Good job.